Welcome back. You're with Storyboard. Even as the ASCII lobbies to promote self-regulation on the strength of its code, the Government of India, led by the Ministry for Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, we believe, is mulling over rules to regulate marketing to children. The ASCII says of the 640 complaints it has received so far this year, just 2 had to do with advertising to children. Nikita Rana reports that may be less to do with how good our marketers are and more to do with how broad the guidelines are.
I want all the parents to get their kids here and let them enter the magical world.
On Children's Day, celebrated last month, visitors to this Mumbai mall had a fantasy come true, a candy tree. Perfetti Van Malindia, the confectionery maker that had invested about 5 to 7 lakh rupees for the 2-day promotion, says it was a success with over 1,000 children stopping by to taste the goodies. The 1,500 crore rupee company is looking for more activities to reach out to 5 to 13-year-olds, its biggest consumer segment. Not surprising given that half of its 15 brands are meant for kids.
Marketing to kids is extremely difficult because of the fact that they're not kids anymore. You know, they're quasi-adults already, given today's explosion of media and all the opportunities that go with it. But I think, like everyone else, if there's an idea that the child loves, then he will do anything to get it.
A fact that's borne out when you meet these 9-year-olds who study in a school in South Mumbai. They are brand conscious, active online and very opinionated.
Ginny and Johnny, the song is very, very nice and I like to hear the song, and their clothes are very comfortable to wear it. I like Nike because it is my favorite brand, and these footballs are very soft, its bats are have very good strokes. Apple. iPhone. iPhone too. Apple. Blackberry.
I like Levi's because it's comfortable and it looks good. Also perfumes, I like Chanel No. 5, and I like the smell.
Fictitious ads I don't like exactly because means one eats biscuits, get powers, eat milk, height grows instantly and that sort of thing. I don't like those ads because the ads are made to promote some products, and by such ads the products are not promoted.
I would buy a Samsung mobile because it has all the contacts and whatever we have to do, and it also has games on it.
My favorite ad is about that Youngistan ka wow of Pepsi, because in that Ranbir Kapoor is there and I love him.
I like Complan Boys because I am drinking Complan and I am in 5th standard and I am very tall.
According to IMRB's last annual Kids Scan report in 2010, that surveyed 5,000 respondents, including parents and children between the age of 8 to 13 years across 18 cities, 70% of the kids said that their parents consult them when they buy stuff for the house. 73% said they took their children along while shopping. 64% parents said their kids influence the purchase of any consumer durable. No surprise then that marketers across industries are increasingly talking to children in their commercials.
Kids are very brand conscious. That's something which is very clearly come out of the Kids Scan survey. But when it comes to when we talk of whether we need stricter guidelines, I don't think we need any more stricter guidelines than what currently exist in this country, because I feel that what is more important is if there's a law, the law needs to be enforced to ensure that whatever guidelines are there, they need to be followed more strictly.
And if they are not talking to kids, they are featuring them. Tata Capital has been using children in its commercials consistently since 2007 when it launched. None of their competitors were doing it and the brand wanted to stand out. The company says the strategy has worked, and after this commercial released in 2010, scores on attributes like customer service, transparency and trustworthiness moved up by 10 to 15%.
Children are clearly not the primary target group for any financial service brand, nor are they influencers to a large extent in the financial sector. But what's really worked for us is the distinctiveness of using children and using them consistently across all our communication. We've been using them for some time now, and whatever feedback we have received is actually quite interesting. We've had feedback ranging from how women who are soon going to become a major part of the target audience and are currently also a big influencer, are warming up to all our communication much more because of the usage of children.
But creative directors say the use of kids in commercials have to be well thought out.
I think if you use children out of context and if there is no reason for them to be there, one, I think, is that because they are not attention grabbing as they maybe were a couple of years ago, so that won't happen. And second, when they're out of context, it just throws people off, saying why are they doing this with children? Then it seems like a bit of an overkill.
My sense is, I think this much people have realized that if you put in a kid, at least it will be endearing. But what's happening is, because there's a huge proliferation of ideas like this, unless there's something spectacular that you do with a kid, I think your commercial can pass by and nobody will notice, because suddenly, after all, how many cute kids can you go on seeing? So while categories where putting a kid is relevant, it makes sense, but I think if you try and force fit a kid without an idea just for the sake of making it cute, I think that falls flat.
The government is proposing a new set of laws that's set to govern advertising directed at children. This was discussed at the ASCI conference 2 weeks ago, and ASCI is trying to convince the government that the self-regulation method works better.
Surf Excel, दाल अच्छे इन बदमाशों के demands खत्म ही नहीं होते.
The ASCI has received 2 complaints against these 2 ads this year. The complaints suggest that the ads were encouraging the consumption of junk food. But the complaints were not upheld, as the ASCI committee that looked into the matter found that both ads were compliant with its guidelines for food and beverage ads directed at children under 13 years of age. These guidelines discourage advertisers from making claims that aren't scientifically proven, showing overconsumption of foods and drinks, and from undermining parental guidance.
They do not want any misleading or misleading advertisements to be aimed at children particularly relating to food and beverages. So therefore they are planning to come up with certain guidelines, which we are trying to work with them in this regard.
We realize that these kind of frameworks are essential to create what is called to set what are called ethical standards on all these issues, but we are still far behind in actually making it happen in a consistent something that everybody, that those set of guidelines are above everybody. There are no exceptions. There are no, deviations. We haven't reached that so far. We are still struggling with defining what is right, what is wrong, what is the, benchmark, what are the ethical standards. And on children, the sooner we, decide, the better for us.
8 global companies, General Mills, Coca-Cola, Kellogg's, Kraft Foods, Nestle, Mars, PepsiCo and Hindustan Unilever voluntarily signed the India Pledge in July last year, according to which signatories won't advertise to children below the age of 12 or promote products in primary schools unless the products meet specific nutrition guidelines. Homegrown players like Britannia are also careful about the kind of activities they do in schools.
Any communication or engagement with kids has to be responsible. And in that responsibility are things like whatever we do should be good for the kid as well as good to taste. We believe for our brands, we make products which are good for you, which are good to taste, and that is true even for kids or any other segment of consumers.
In September, the UNICEF released a report on child well-being in the UK, Spain and Sweden and has appealed to the British government to ban all advertising targeted at children below the age of 12 years. According to the report, children in the UK feel trapped in a materialistic culture, brand bullying is strong and children don't spend enough time with their families. Sweden and Norway forbid all advertising aimed at children below the age of 12 years. Greece bans all toy advertising until after 10 p.m. and Denmark and Belgium severely restrict advertising aimed at children. While the ASCI and most marketers believe that the present guidelines are sufficient, India may opt for stricter norms in the years to come. In Mumbai, Nikita Rana.
And that brings us to the Ad Meter poll this week. We are asking